2 years later and 24 countries later, and the most extraordinary experiences that I cannot even quantify. The miracles, the revelations, the downloads, the intimacy, the beautiful people that we've met, this gorgeous world that we get to live in. I mean, we have had the most extraordinary 2-year adventure that I couldn't even fathom it could be that amazing.
Welcome to the Light the Day podcast, where we explore spiritually transformative experiences. Today, I'm excited to welcome my friend Minda Pacheco. And did I pronounce your last name right? I feel like I say this at the beginning of every episode.
No, it's okay. It's kind of a tricky one. It's Pacheco. It's Spanish.
Pacheco. Okay,
Mhm.
beautiful. Awesome. Yeah, it's not, I don't call you and go, "Hi, Minda Pacheco."
Exactly.
I just say, "Hi, Minda."
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started on your story and where we go
Mm,
from there.
Thank you. About myself, I just turned 50, so there's a lot of life experience lived. I resonate with being an intuitive healer. I'm a sound alchemist. I have had some really beautiful mediumship gifts come in as of late. That's been a fun thing. And that's actually how you and I, Julie, have connected, which has been amazing. I love being in that community. And I do some coaching. I kind of just have this tool belt of lots of different things I've collected from doing my own healing for the last 20 years and really being on this spiritual path that has led me to uncovering a lot about myself and humanity. I feel like I'm kind of a relationship nerd, honestly. I love to study relationships. I've been in a relationship with the same man for 30 years. We just celebrated our anniversary in Morocco under the stars in the desert on a camel. And it's just been a magnificent journey. This first 50 years has been all about me um, understanding myself on a deep, deep level and learning to love myself, being with all the parts of me, even the parts that I've wanted to hide for many, many years. I'm finally in a place where I love all the parts of me, and it feels really, it feels complete.
That's amazing.
Um, and this next 50 years, I'm so invested in helping end suffering on this planet. I feel like that's really why I'm here. I've suffered a lot and I see a lot of people around me suffering. And while I know that pain is part of this journey, I know that the suffering is optional. And sometimes we do it anyway. But I know that if we can minimize the suffering on this planet, there's some big shifts coming. And I'm really excited for all of that.
That's wonderful. Actually, I really want to share something that came in today as I was talking to someone because it applies to what you just said. So so this friend of mine was telling me about how she was really surprised because people would say to her, you're a light and you bring in so much light. And she's like, I don't feel like that. And I said, it's really because you've done so much healing and just your presence brings healing. And then what the angels showed me was they showed me the ocean and I'm like, okay, well, how does that fit? And they were like, they showed me, it was like a cross section of the ocean and the depth. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to share with you why this applies to you. But they showed this depth and then they showed how, because, she was saying, well, sometimes I go early to the gym and I'm not feeling my best, or I'm tired at night. And, and what they showed me was like this depth and this depth of calm water underneath. And no matter what was happening on the surface,
Mm-hmm.
this depth was there. Like it was a part of her. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what, and then they showed me it was like all of the hardships that she'd gone through, and I'm hoping that that you can relate to this. All these hardships, because I know that she's gone through some really, really painful things, even though she's pretty young yet. All these hardships that she's gone through is like digging out a deeper ocean. And you know how,
Mhm.
like, when they dig out, like, you can see the silt go into the water and
Mhm.
you can see the ruffling of the water. And, but she didn't leave it there. She did the
Mhm.
work
Mhm.
and she calmed those waters. And so she claimed that depth. And
Mhm.
that was such a beautiful illustration to me. And I feel like that totally applies to you and your
Mhm.
experiences. So I hope that that makes sense or that resonates with you because it was an amazing way
Mhm.
to look at it. I'd never thought of it that way before.
Mhm. Well, that is such a beautiful analogy. And I love the way that you can actually express what comes in, because a lot of times when I see pictures, I have a hard time really sharing what, um, like the
It is a
depth of what
challenge.
it is. So I love that you were able to just paint that in 5D. And yeah, it really deeply resonates for me. I've spent a lot of my life not really understanding why I'm doing all of this work, because it's been 20 years that I've been really consistently looking at myself in all the corners and all the shadows, like going and clearing out the attic and doing work that most people aren't required to do, don't want to do, don't need to do. But there's this part of me that is this desires to be in a place where there's no separation inside of myself,
Mm,
where I'm a pure vessel, where I can be a conduit. And it doesn't come from me. Like, sometimes I feel like I like to torture myself. And I know the people around me are like, Minda, is it necessary? Is this? And and yet there's a part of my soul that is on this journey to cleanse myself and to become the embodiment of pure love.
yeah, you're claiming your depth. So I asked you before we went live. I said, "So where do you want your story to begin?" And you said 2020 when everything started to fall apart. So take us back there and share what happened and where you went from there.
Okay. I think, like many of us, 2020 was it was a big year. I didn't get COVID. No one close to me got COVID. No one I know was affected by it. I know a lot of people were deeply affected by the actual virus, but I was deeply affected by other things in 2020. My husband and I both got this nudge download prompting to sell our home on two different occasions. He came to me and said, "Hey, I don't I don't know if you're going to like what I have to say, but I got this strong nudge that we should sell our house." And the funny thing is I had been getting the same nudges, and so it was a no-brainer. And mind you, we'd been in this house in this community for 17 years, and
Wow.
we just finished remodeling the master bathroom. I was got the tub I wanted finally. It was My closet was beautiful. The hangers were all beautiful wood maple hang, like it was perfect. But it just seemed so right for us to list our house. The housing market was it was definitely a seller's market, and we listed our home, and we ended up moving into this beautiful 5 acre property where one of my sons was already out of the house, had graduated from high school, but my younger son was about 15 at the time, and he needed to just be able to run wild and free. So we rented this farmhouse on this 5 acre property. There was probably 150 different trees, and we had animals. We had chickens and horses and mini donkeys and sheep, and we were so happy there. There were some interesting dynamics going on with our son, who actually we adopted from foster care when he was 6. And so he was starting to show some signs that were troubling. But for the most part, this beautiful land was really healing for all of us. Um, Towards the end of the year, we found out that the landlord was selling the property. It was really pretty devastating. And it was at that time as well that my son started really showing signs and behaviors of the trauma that he had endured for the first 5 years of his life, which, if you don't know about foster care, it's really hard for these moms to get their kids taken away. The state is really, really in support of these moms keeping their kids. So when they actually do get removed and taken from their biological mother, the situation's really bad. And so he was showing all of these signs and basically began to do the things that were my worst nightmare as a mother. All of the things that I had done to prevent this from happening, and I don't know, we didn't talk about this yet, but I was really a strong member of the LDS faith, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons. I was actually serving as the Relief Society president at the time, which is the the president of an organization of women in the congregation. So I had a big responsibility there, and my son was he had actually stolen a phone, um, downloaded a bunch of apps that I didn't know about, and was doing things that honestly were terrifying.
Mm.
Terrifying to me. My oldest son had, just walked the straight line, had done everything we thought he should do. We actually thought we were really good parents when it was just him, and now we were really having some serious challenges. His trauma brought up a lot of my trauma, brought up a lot of my husband's trauma. We started having major challenges in our marriage. All of this unhinged nervous system that I was experiencing on a daily basis was creating great health challenges for me. I ended up having some thyroid challenges and then some just interesting, weird, that didn't make sense things that were happening in my body. And I'd usually been very healthy and my whole life exercised and ate clean. And so these health challenges were really just also a kind of a curveball. And at the end of 2020, our home was so tumultuous. There was so much chaos in it. I was so sick that one day I remember laying on my bed and my husband came in and I said, I'm either going to leave or our son has to leave because
Mm.
I cannot do this anymore. And it's not even a choice. Like my soul is saying, if something doesn't change, you're going to die. And my husband's trauma is that two of his dads abandoned him.
Mm.
And so this was extremely painful for my husband to have to decide, like, is it my son that goes? Does my wife move out? It was a really, really, really dark time. And I remember taking a walk around the neighborhood early one morning. And I was having a come to Jesus moment about why my life was so miserable. Why was I so miserable? I was doing all of the things that I knew how to do, especially in the church. I was serving my face off.
Mm.
I was dedicating probably 20 to 30 hours a week serving in the church, doing everything I knew how to do because I'd been told that if you are checking the boxes, that your life will be joyful. And my life was miserable and I could not make sense of it. It just came to a point where I couldn't put band-aids on anymore. I was miserable. My marriage was miserable. My relationship with my son was miserable. And in that time, I watched a documentary called Unorthodox.
Mm.
It's about a woman who grew up in the Bronx in a Jewish community. It's this beautiful, true story about this brave soul who ended up questioning this religion that she'd been born into. And I will never forget the scene on her wedding day in this culture. The women gathered around her on her wedding day and they shaved her head because she was going to be wearing a wig for the rest of her life. Because in the Bible, it talks about women covering their heads.
Wow.
And this scene, the look on her face when this was happening was so disturbing. It cut me to my core. And then the spirit said to me, which is my higher self, Minda, there are things in your life that are the exact same as this. And it's time to start paying attention. There are things that you're doing that don't look like shaving your head, but it's the exact same thing. It's the exact same fear. It's the exact same control. It's the exact same, it doesn't make sense. And that stayed with me for 3 solid days. I really could not get it off my mind. It was a visceral reaction in my cells. And I realized that there were some things that I needed to stop doing. And number one, I needed to take a step back from going to church every Sunday. And this was into 2021 when people were starting to go back to church. I needed to take a step back and not wear my garments, the underwear that LDS, when you go through the temple and you make these covenants, you wear these sacred underwear, as you know, Julie. And I knew I needed to take off my garments and decide what underwear I wanted to wear for the first time in 28 years. And I also knew that if I didn't start with those two things, that I would be living out of integrity with myself. And I don't do that.
Yeah.
And so I folded up my garments and I put them on the top shelf. And I told my husband, I need to stop going to church for a while. I don't know how long. And I know this is scary because you and I, our whole marriage is based on this religion. You and I grew up in this religion. We both have pioneer ancestors all the way back to the foundation of this church 200 years ago. It's a huge part of who we are.
Yeah.
And I don't know what
Identity.
this looks like. This is scary to me. I know it's scary to you. I know that this might be a deal breaker, but my soul cannot do this anymore. And I cannot live out of integrity of myself for another minute. And so I will pause there if you have any questions, if you want me to go further. There's a lot more to the story, but we can pause.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm just enthralled with your story because, I've known you for a year or so, and I know just the tiniest bit of your story. And so I'm just hanging on to every word. But I understand what you're saying about, I think that there's what you're feeling is this universal call that everybody is being called to live in more integrity and to go beyond conditioning and expectations and do things that feel correct for each person. And for some people, that correctness is to stay within a church system, and for other, and that feels integrous to them until it doesn't. And I think that's really what you experienced. It felt integrous for you to be in until it didn't. Would
Mm-hmm.
you agree with that?
Oh, well, absolutely. The church worked for me for many, many years, and I love the foundation that it provided for me. I love so many things about the church, and I feel like I am a really incredible human being because of a lot of things I learned in the church. And I feel like I graduated. Just like I went to Gilbert High School and I graduated, right? Because now it's time to go on to other education, other learning, other college or what have you. I'm not upset that I went to Gilbert High School. I don't have an animosity towards Gilbert High School, but it's not useful for me to be in Gilbert High School any longer. And that's really how I feel about the church. It's not useful for me any longer. And I have a lot of family members that it still works for them.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing. They're good people.
Well, I'm also a little curious because it feels uh like you received this message And obviously, this message, like I've had messages like this before, where you receive this message and it's like God standing in front of you speaking to you. It's like you can't. You can't ignore the message. And it's like you had this experience with this particular thing and this message. Was there any other clues that, like anything leading up to that, where you
Yeah,
were
yeah,
feeling out of
yeah,
balance or like something's not right or
definitely.
yeah.
It was me taking a good hard look at how judgmental I was. And I wasn't trying to be judgmental, and I would not have considered myself a judgmental person. I feel like I've been pretty open minded my whole life. But when I really got super still and very clear, and I was willing to ask myself some questions about, do I like who I'm being?
Hmm.
Do I show up in this world with the kind of love that Jesus, like if I'm claiming to be in a religion that is founded on the teachings of Jesus Christ, am I actually being like Jesus Christ? And when I got really clear with myself, I realized, because I think that things are right and wrong, because I believe in sin, because I believe in black and white, I actually can relate more to the Pharisees than I can to Jesus Christ. And when I sat with that, and it hurt me to have that realization about myself. I feel like most of my life is dedicated to serving, and that's what Jesus Christ would do. But the judgments I had that just come with the territory when you think that there's right and wrong, I had to get really clear about that. And I realized, Minda, you are a Pharisee. And as soon as that dropped in, and as soon as I sat with that for some days, and I really let that sink in with me, I realized nobody is worthy of my judgment and everybody is worthy of my love.
Oh
And
my
I will
gosh,
be
can
on
we
a
just frame
quest.
that? Can we frame that? Say that again. No one is worthy of my
Nobody
judgment.
is worthy of my judgment and everybody is worthy of my love. And I will go to the my last breath with that on my heart. That's what I'm here for.
I
Nobody.
I love that so much. If if you're listening to this and you don't hear anything else, I'm sure there'll be more gold here. But like that is just a brilliant statement. Brilliant and true and beautiful. Beautiful. So where did things progress from there?
I ended up, so so the farm got sold. Long story short, we ended up moving into a fifth wheel, into a toy hauler. It was a really nice one, but I'm going to tell you that no amount of nice toy hauler can make up for the fact that I'm in Arizona in the summer and it's 115 degrees outside.
Were all three of you in this fifth wheeler?
So my son had been invited to leave at that time. He went
Okay.
to live with another family. Yeah,
Okay.
actually with my sister's family. And so I was coming up for air for the first time in my life. And it got really hot, right? It got really hot in this fifth wheel, and I started getting really claustrophobic, and I realized I needed to leave. I needed to leave to get out of the heat, and I needed to leave to be able to really unpack what was going on in my nervous system without my husband being there, because I knew that he couldn't handle it. What he was experiencing, which was actually him addressing his shadows for the first time. So he's got his own stuff going on here. I've got my stuff going on here with the church. And I decided, I had an aunt in Utah, and I decided to go live with her for 3 months. And it was there that I spent all day for 3 months unpacking my thoughts and my judgments. And
Mm.
I decided to listen to every podcast, read every book, surround myself with people that I had judged in the past, that I thought I was nothing like, that I thought were sinning, that I thought were so, were doing things that were unforgivable. And I butt up against every single belief system that I'd had. And I experienced what it feels like to have true freedom from my judgments for the first time in my life. And I started loving myself in a way I've never experienced before. And I started being kinder. I started being more gentle. I started having this well of empathy that I didn't know existed inside of me. I started seeing the world in a in a new color that I'd never seen before. And my husband, after 3 months, I came back and he was still, he's still reeling, like still confused, still, we don't know what this looks like. This is uncharted territory. This is uncertain. Will the marriage last? Are we going to be able to evolve and grow together? But at the end of the day, all he could say is, Minda, I love who you're being.
Mm.
And if we're talking about by the fruits ye shall know them, I love the fruit.
Mm.
I don't know how to make sense of this in my mind because I'm scared, but I love the fruit on this tree. And I can't deny that you have become this version of yourself that I'm intoxicated by. So he and I start having many conversations, many, many, many deep conversations. And I'm letting him figure this out on his own. He was still going to church, and I actually loved that he was going to church. He would dress up in his suit. I think he looks really good in a suit. And I would kiss him on the way out. He was happened to like have a calling in the church where it required him working with the men in the men's organization. He was really thriving in that. And I loved that he was doing that because for the first time, he was deciding that, I'm calling the shots in my own life. I want to go to, it was, a lot of times in the church, it's the woman that's saying, hey, let's do this. And how have you done your home teaching? And let's invite the missionaries for dinner. And yes, we're going to church on Sunday when we're on vacation. And for the first time, I saw him making these radical decisions for himself. And even, I mean, we were in Las Vegas a couple of times. He was going to church when we were on vacation by himself. And I loved it. And
Yeah.
I loved allowing each of us, we were each allowing each of us to be on this path, this sovereign path for the first time. Like, okay, you do what feels right for you. And I'm going to just be with it. Yeah, it's butting up against some of my beliefs. It's challenging me. It's taking me to my edge. But let's just see where this goes. Let's just keep going with this. Let's keep deciding that we're both in for this journey, and let's just see where it leads us, because it actually is bringing us relief and comfort and happiness for the first time in a long time. And so let's just let's ride this wave.
Mm.
So after that, and after many, many, many conversations, Todd started asking questions. My husband started asking his own questions. And little by little, he started seeing that there were things that were problematic in the church. There were things that didn't make sense. Those things that we've been taught to put on a shelf. Put on a shelf. Maybe we'll know in the next life. We're not meant to know everything in this life. Pretty soon the shelf got really heavy. And the thing that broke the shelf was November 2022. After 3 years of a dark night of the soul, he was driving his motorcycle, which he very rarely, he was actually just riding a motorcycle to flip it. He was riding his motorcycle to go pick up a truck that he had just bought, and he got severely hit by a car.
Wow.
And it crushed his entire right side of his body. He broke his right arm. He shattered his pelvis front and back on the right side. His hip came out of its socket. He broke his femur. He
Wow.
was in the hospital and in rehab for 1 month. And it's those times when you say to God and the universe and source and everything that is, what in the hell is going on? You got to
Yeah.
be kidding me. And both of us knew without a doubt that this was the universe way of saying it's time to pivot. It's time to pivot.
Mm.
You've sold your house. It's time to sell everything you have and it's time to pivot. And so Christmas Eve 2022, my husband had just got out of the hospital and Spirit led me to a website called Workaway. And it's thousands of opportunities all over the world where you can pair up with people who need help on their organic farms or whatever project they're doing. And you live with them and they cook for you and you support them in whatever they're building or creating for 5 hours a day. And it's this beautiful exchange. And both of us knew instantaneously, we're going to move to Europe. We've always wanted to travel. You can't work anymore. You have to shut your company down. And we are going to take at least 6 months and go see what the world is like. And Julie, 2 years later, and 24 countries later, and the most extraordinary experiences that I cannot even quantify, the miracles, the revelations, the downloads, the intimacy, the beautiful people that we've met, this gorgeous world that we get to live in. I mean, we have had the most extraordinary 2 year adventure that I couldn't even fathom it could be that amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. I met you. Were you in
We were in Greece.
Greece? That's where
Yeah,
you were. Yeah,
yeah,
we were in online class together. There
yeah.
was a Facebook group for this class, and you went searching through the student list and found a couple of us who were coaches. I think there was
We
the
had
life
mutual
coach
friends.
school. Oh, that's right.
We had
Yeah.
mutual friends, and so I DM'd you and I
Yes.
said, "Hey, I need to practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know if we did any practicing, but we enjoyed chatting.
yeah. Well, no,
We did
you
a
we
little bit of
did, we
practicing. That's
did.
right, we
Yeah,
did. Yeah.
we did. But we connected with one other woman as well, and the three of us have had some really great connection and conversation, and we have so much in common. Coming
Yeah.
from a religious background and the
Yeah.
support that is required in unpacking and unwinding all of that. And so
Yeah.
that's been such a beautiful thing for us.
Yeah, it was a crazy connection because I remember connecting. Well, the funny thing was your name is Minda, which is not super common.
No.
And when you said you were in Greece, I'm like, is she gonna have an accent? I'm gonna be able to understand her. And then when I met you, I'm like, wait, where are you from? And you're like, Arizona. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was kind of a funny little aside. But um,
Mhm.
so you were in Greece when we met, but so and then I remember that you were having all these experiences with the what we would call like the metaphysical world, uh, and these Eastern
Mhm.
practices versus the
Mhm.
the Western influences, for example, that you've had in religion or in, just in our lifestyle here versus the Eastern practices. I think it's so fascinating to see how the world has become so much smaller and how we have, I think it's been a beautiful thing to watch the in some ways and the US be impacted by these Eastern philosophies
Mhm.
and these Eastern cultures.
Mhm.
I feel like it's really brought in a more balance. Like we have a long ways to go. So
Mhm.
I'm going to say
Mhm.
that up front, but I do feel like it's brought more feminine energy to our
Mhm.
experiences. If we think about, even yoga practices that were, when I was a kid, was kind of unheard of. It
Mhm.
was just kind of, you know, being introduced and
Mhm.
unknown. And then so many
Mhm.
people doing these practices that just brought in some stillness into our life. Uh,
Mhm.
uh, Too often we use it as we're on the rat race, we're on the highway, and we're like, okay, we're gonna sit for a minute and
Mhm.
have a meditation practice or a yoga practice, and um, certainly that helps. But there's more to it. But I just love all the experiences that you've had. So tell us a little bit about kind of some of the highlights of how
Mhm.
that informed your spiritual development coming
Mhm.
from this Western Christian background
Mhm.
into and living in these other countries
Mhm.
with other traditions. And I
Yeah.
know you went to India too, which I was like, honestly jealous.
Oh,
I just think
no.
I just find your story so I like there's so much bravery in it. Like
Mhm.
I think I've got we were talking astrology before we hit record. I think I have too much earth energy in me to do
Mhm.
something like that, but I find it fascinating.
Mhm. You know what? The whole thing is fascinating, Julie, because my husband has so much earth energy too. And so he was really in charge of the physical. And I have so much Pisces in me. I'm so watery. I'm so airy. And and so I took care of all the metaphysical. And so I would literally tune into, I would see the world map and I would tune into where does the energy feel like it's going. And okay, we're going to India. And we went to India for 2.5 months and we studied Ayurveda for 1 month. We did the entire Panchakarma. We studied with a doctor who's been practicing for 25 years, and I loved it so much. And I realized this is what my ancestors used to practice. My grandma was Ayurvedic. I didn't know what it meant, but when
Ah,
you talk about Western and Eastern, so the United States, we are in kindergarten.
yeah.
Our entire country is as old as their newest building. Right? Like we're toddlers. We're still trying to figure it out. We're in this chaos. Like we really don't. I mean, we're doing it as well as we can, honestly. But when we see these 5,000-year-old traditions that have been going on for millennia, and they're so deeply rooted and grounded in the Vedic system. Like we're tuning into actually all the energy of the earth, right? Every morning I do something called Bhuta Shuddhi. I learned in the ashram at the feet of Sadhguru, which was the most incredible experience. But I tune in every single morning to the elements of the earth. And then I do my 21-minute energy cleanse every single morning that I learned at the ashram. And and what I have learned is that the just being there in the earth, this is so ancient. It's like you could just sit in the grass and it feels like you're being enveloped in your grandparents who can just like the ground is wise. You could literally sit there and listen to the earth and it will teach you something. And India is such a beautiful place because it literally meets everyone where they are. It will show you it is such a mirror to you. It was very hard. India was very hard and very beautiful. And when I left, I bawled because my heart there's a huge piece of India in my heart. I love the people. I love the culture. I love the depth. I love every, I gained more understanding about myself in relationship to other people and into this universe in 2 months than maybe I had my whole life. That's what India is to me. And I have relationships with people there that will last a lifetime. Um, we also got to experience some beautiful time in Nepal where I brought back some incredible Tibetan bowls. I'm a sound alchemist and love doing healing with sound vibration. And these bowls chose me, and they're like my children. I love them so much. I got to bring those home, and now I get to pour. all of that energy into people here. I play bowls on people's hearts, right? And on their different chakras, and I get to help people heal in that way. Um, we spent a lot of time in the south of France. I actually tuned into a knowingness that my husband and I needed to spend 3 months apart with no contact at the very end of our journey. And I knew I needed to go into the south of France and feel that deep feminine energy. I'm on the path of Mary Magdalene. She's been calling to me. And so I spent 3 months in the sacred land where she spent the last 30 years of her life. And my husband went back to India and got even deeper initiations while he was there. It was such a beautiful experience for both of us. So you can imagine we've been married for 29 plus years, and we've been traveling for 2 years together, and that now it's no contact, no, not even a text for 3 months. And then we came back together, and we're in Barcelona, where we've been coaching with a beautiful couple there that has been teaching us really how to go to the depths of intimacy as a monogamous couple. And we met with our coach there and had this beautiful reunification. And then we went to Morocco and renewed our vows in the desert with camels and the whole, I mean, it scenes right out of a movie, and under the stars, and had this conscious reunification, as cleansed, purified, um, there's a newness is all I have to say. It's a newness that we haven't experienced before in our relationship. And I think that that is one of the most important things for us, is we are in this for the long haul. And we don't want to just find ourselves tolerating each other, or yeah, I love him, but we're committed to having a deeply passionate marriage until we take our last breath, hopefully together. And so it requires us doing things that are unconventional, doing things that, people are like, what? Why?
Yeah.
Welcome to our life. The questions we get asked by people, and we don't always have an answer, but we always know that we're going to tune into the next right thing for us, and we're not going to be afraid. One of the things that Todd and I did while we were gone for 2 years is we faced all of our deepest fears. Every single one of them came up like a lion. And we were able to really have the space and the time to really look at what has been limiting us in our beliefs. Because fear is an illusion, it does not exist. Love is the only thing that really exists. And so anything separate from that is an illusion. And when we really take the time to see that everything is an illusion, unless it's unconditional love that it's made up, I mean, it was such a privilege for us to be able to really, like, that was our job for 2 years, is to just to look at all the illusions that have been running the show in our marriage, in our lives as individuals, in our family, as a couple. It was just, it's been phenomenal, to say the least.
That's amazing. It's so one of the things I love about doing these interviews is because when we hear and like we really listen to other people's stories, again, without judgment and with love, what you did and what you're doing may not work for someone else. It's not going
Oh,
to work for
for
anyone else,
sure,
right?
Julie.
Yeah,
For
so it's
sure.
so when we listen to people's stories with this no judgment and love, we can honor everyone's story
Mm.
without feeling like it has to be ours, or if it doesn't resonate with us, then somehow they're wrong. It's really I love the way you said you've said several times, like I tune in, what's the next step? I'm curious, were there times, and I imagine were there times when like you were tuning in and Todd was tuning in and you weren't necessarily on the same page? Because it sounds like you were in a lot of ways, but uh, what did that look like?
Julie, that's what's so phenomenal here, is like, We each have a role, and we know our role, and we do our role really, really well. And it blows me away sometimes when I look at like how we work together. It's really unbelievable. My strengths are his weaknesses are my strengths, and we don't try to overlap. I
Yeah.
just know like there's no way in hell I'm going to try to drive on the opposite side of the road on the steering wheel on the opposite side of the car, because we actually, like, the universe brought us a car when we needed one. I'm not going to try to drive. I am just going to support this man while he drives the skinniest roads I've ever seen in my life, and please do not hit that car that's 1 inch away from us, right? And
Yeah,
I'm
just
just
cheering him on with his
cheering him on, right?
driving
And then
abilities.
when I get these downloads about where I feel like intuitively we are to go next, he's in 100% support of me. It's and what I want to offer to here for your audience is, you're right. Our story, what we're doing, isn't for everyone, but there is something for everyone. And the
Yeah.
point here is to tune into what that is for you, and to not be afraid to take that next step, because this has required intense trust. I mean, intense trust on every level. What I didn't mention is when we left, we literally had no idea how long we were going to be there. We had no idea where we were going to go above. We knew we had a plan for 6 weeks, and we had literally $15,000 in our account.
Mm,
1 5.
mm,
And we knew we would just figure it out. We knew we would make it work. We knew we could. We knew spirit would be with us at like every single turn, at every single point, at every single. And like I said, we needed a car at one point, and a car showed up.
yeah.
I mean, we have these stories, these miraculous stories, the entire way that God showed up in our story. And I'm mind blown. I'm left mind blown, but it does require an exorbitant amount of courage. And so what I'm here now is to be a stand for people, literally to hold people's hand when I know this is the next right thing for me, and I'm scared to death. I'm like, I'm your girl.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think we can all look around and see that the old ways of doing things no
Yeah.
longer work. Like the old paradigm that was still in existence when I was a kid, I was born in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was a kid, there was still the paradigm of the office, the man gets the job,
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
works till retirement, he receives the pension,
Yeah.
woman's primary role is in the home, and maybe she works as a secretary or something of like, and I'm not, I know there were people that lived outside of that paradigm,
Yeah.
but that was
But not many.
still the
Yeah.
paradigm of that
Mm-hmm.
time period. That was
Yeah.
society was still, and we saw that breaking down. Like we
Mm-hmm.
saw, I
Mm-hmm.
watched it breaking down in my
Yeah.
lifetime. And
Yeah.
now we see young people, there's just hardly, I cannot think of a young person who is, even if they've gone to college and received a certain degree, even that's breaking down because
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
education is changing. Everything has
Mm-hmm.
changed.
Mm-hmm.
And so looking at, and that's why I love your story so much, because it's all about feeling into what's correct for
Mm-hmm.
you.
Mm-hmm.
And that feels, and I think from that old paradigm, that was seen as selfish. But what
Mm.
I
Or
am
crazy more
crazy
than
or
even
selfish, right?
selfish.
Like, yeah, but it's like, oh, I'm going to
Eh,
do what's correct for me, kind of had that message of, oh, well, I'm
yeah.
going to go find myself. Do you remember that,
Oh
from
yeah.
kids come out of high school and they're going to go find themselves? And it was kind of like a pejorative, right?
Mm.
That they were going to go find themselves. But there's beauty in that because it's different. If when you talked at the very beginning about loving yourself, and when we love ourselves, so I think it's one of the teachings of Yeshua that we overlook, is this
Mm-hmm.
idea that love. others as you love yourself. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's I feel the message there is we can't love others until we love ourselves. There, we don't have the capacity to love others fully until we love ourselves. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's a moving energy as we love others and we love ourselves and we love others and we love ourselves. But it doesn't, like, we
Mm-hmm.
can't just love ourselves and forget about others. We can't just love others and forget about ourselves. There's a reciprocal energy there that where everything, it's kind of unplugging from the circuit if we
Mm-hmm.
leave out part of that equation of loving
Mm-hmm.
others as we love ourselves and bringing that love forward. I don't know. I'm just like, I'm so inspired by your story because I think it's a prototype for what the energy is, where we are headed as a society.
Mm-hmm.
And this is
Mm-hmm.
what I've seen as I've worked with people is this, if every person, this is, I mean, this is, if every person was solid in who they were and they were listening to their soul and feeling into that energy of what's the
Mm-hmm.
next right step, we would all be cared for and we would all be at peace and there we would be living in a world of love.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is the, to me, that's the answer to all of it is
Mm-hmm.
every person doing the work to love
Mm-hmm.
themselves and
Mm-hmm.
bring that love into the world from that
Mm-hmm.
place of solid connection to divine, to that divine energy, which is the center of our soul. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. You just your story inspires me and I know that there's going to be some people listening who are like, "Well, that's just crazy." And I get it, but
Mm-hmm.
also I feel like it's called like everyone is being called forward. 2020 was like
That's
that
right. That's
breaking
right.
point, and everyone's being called forward to
That's right.
really figure out what lights you up, because what
Mm-hmm.
lights you up is what's going to help you light your world, light the world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
So
I
beautiful.
I talked on and on, but what are your thoughts about that? Is there
Well, Julie, my thought is like I'd like to bring this back full circle with religion because what I realized is there was a limit to the way that I was able to love myself and other people because someone was in between my relationship and my connection to the divine. And when I
Mhm.
realize I am the divine, I am light, I am source, there's no density, there's no separation, there's no limitation, there's no lack. And I am that. I am the universe. I am the brightest star. I am the goddess. And I really let that sink in. And that, along with a lot of other work that I've done, really intense work. I've gone to some beautiful workshops and retreats, and I've met beautiful people along my journey. I've learned what compassion truly means for myself, where I am so deeply held by myself that no separation can exist inside of me. And embodying that compassion for myself, like a mother would for her suffering child, I have that for me. And now I can have that for everyone else in the world because you're right. You can only love other people to the depth that you're able to love yourself. And love knows no bounds. We will never touch the depths of the well of love in this lifetime. And that's exciting because there's always more to love. There's always more to go. But when there's someone in between us and that love, when I, as a woman, am told to look to someone else as the go between, that someone else knows more than me, that someone else gets to decide if I get to be in the highest and holiest places where God dwells, I cannot fully understand myself, my connection to God, my sovereignty, my my calling here as a woman, um, understand my divine purpose on a level that is makes me crazy enough to go out in the world and do these things and throw caution to the wind because I know that this is my purpose.
Yeah.
And that's what's made life worth living for me. You know, in the beginning we touched on this part of life that was so dark and so dense that I honestly would have said thank you if someone pushed me off a cliff and ended my life. I was in that place where it was so dark that I didn't have suicidal thoughts. I wasn't I wasn't in that place. But if someone had said, Minda, your life's over tomorrow, I would have said, thank God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now I'm in this place that is a complete 180 where life has opened up to me in a way that I never thought, I never imagined it could be this rich, this fulfilling, this beautiful. I'm in a relationship with a man I get to wake up to every single morning, and I look at him and I'm like giddy that we've created this. And that doesn't mean that my life still doesn't have big challenges, because when you're on a spiritual path, the challenges actually get bigger, but you also have a deeper capacity to be with them. And so my life isn't easy. Happiness really isn't my goal. Joy is my goal. Realizing my purpose here is my goal. Being able to attract people that need and want and desire what I have, and in ways that I can serve them in the highest and greatest good. That's my goal. And so I cry a lot. I actually cry a lot. I'm sad a lot. I feel the weight of this world a lot. I'm very empathic. This has opened up to me too. I literally used to think I didn't have empathy. And now I'm like, can we dial it down a little bit? But honestly, I have this experience where this world is it's a joyful experience. It's a game that I'm playing. I can't wait to see what's around that corner and what's around that corner. And I've faced every single fear I have. And so I get to live the rest of my life without parameters, without boundaries, without limitation. And it's so exciting. It's so
Yes.
exciting.
Yeah. Beautiful. One of the questions I like to ask everyone is, what are your daily, weekly practices that help you stay connected to the divine, to the spiritual?
Oh, Julie, I have so many. I'm just going to say the ones that just roll off my tongue. I I do the first thing I do in the morning. I consider the first 30 minutes after I wake up and the last 30 minutes before I go to sleep. That is a sacred hour,
Yes.
sacred time. I do not look at my phone until 9 o'clock a.m. I am gazing into the sun. I'm watching the sun rise if possible. I'm out on a walk. I'm grounding in the grass. I do my energy cleanse every single day, rain, shine, if I feel like it, if I don't feel like it. I meditate for 1 to 3 hours a day. And I know this isn't for everyone. Trust me, I'm rolling my own eyes, but this is what's required of me right now, and I'm here for it. I also drain my lymphatic system every single day. I also take, I'm 50 years old, so I'm taking Indian herbs that are helping me transition through perimenopause. I plan on doing it effortlessly. Um, I spend so much time communing with the divine all day, every day. I have a beautiful playlist. I have lots of playlists, but I have a Jesus playlist. And sometimes I put my hand on my heart and one on my womb space, and I just feel so much intense love for myself. And then I pour it into the universe. And that's all usually before 9 a.m.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us. Will you also, where can people find you? I know there's going to be people listening and they're going to be wondering how to
Yeah.
connect with you.
So I actually am not a huge fan of social media, although I do have an account because I was guided to have one and just document some things. When I get a download, I will document. So if people want to know more and a little bit about where we've been in the world and see some beautiful places we've been, and a few snippets and downloads, I am being the miracle on Instagram. That's a great way to connect with me. I check every once in a while, but I'll check more frequently. And then actually instant messaging me on Facebook. It's just Minda Hatch Pacheco, is a good way to connect with me. And I can put an email. We can put an email in the notes if you want. It's just Minda Pacheco 95 at Gmail is a good way to connect with me. And honestly, if anyone gets even a little bit of a nudge, I would really love to. I love to have conversations with people, wherever you are. I love to meet people, just in your place. And I love to have I love to have conversations about all of this. So I would love that.
Yeah. Well, I have enjoyed over the last several months traveling the world with you
Yeah,
virtually.
yeah.
And that's been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us before we end?
Let me tune in. Yeah, something's been on my heart and on my mind recently, and it's women allowing abundance to permeate our lives. I think as women, a lot of us have been in push energy. We think we have to go get something. We think that we need to do things the way men do. We think that there's a there's a there's a finish line somewhere. And what I've realized is, as I have deepened my understanding of myself, and this 3 months in France really woke this up in me. I have a feminine energy inside of me that's been longing to express herself. And I have been getting messages that, Minda, it's really important for you to learn how to receive. And we've heard that message. I've heard that message a lot, but really allowing it to sink in and understanding what receiving really is, and understanding that that is the feminine, and really seeing, because I'm going to create abundance. I am creating abundance in every single area of my life. And what that also looks like is generating wealth,
Mm,
because I am going to generate wealth so that I can recirculate it into the world. And so as I'm calling in this abundance, I'm realizing that it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be efforting. It doesn't have to look like a man does it. It doesn't have to look like anyone does it. That I can actually be playful and joyful, and and attract people who are looking and ready for my services and are excited to pay me for them. And then I recirculate that abundance. That's all it is I'm just in this flow. And as we find this flow as women, as we step into, and this is one of the things I love so much being 50. I could not wait for my 50th birthday, and it's even better than I thought it was going to be, because this second act of our lives is this beautiful space where a lot of us have more time. Our children don't need us as much, or if we didn't have children, maybe we're transitioning in a career. Maybe we're now saying, what's my real purpose aside from all of those other things that I thought was my purpose? Like, what is my spiritual calling in this lifetime? And that is usually, not usually, that is always something that lights us up and is fun for us. And when we can tap into that, I know some of my friends have started painting. Some of my friends have started taking dance classes. It doesn't even need to generate income. But when we step into that, what feels like fun and joy today? And we keep doing that over and over and over. We step into our femininity. And what I see is this world shifting, where women understand our place in this world, women understand our importance in this world, women start dancing in our feminine energy in this world, and we inspire the men, right? The men around us are so inspired, because you cannot resist a woman that is in her radiance.
yeah.
It's impossible. And so imagine if we had 100% of women in this world dancing in our radiance and just literally lighting up the world, turning everyone on. And that's what I see. I see that as women shift, this world is going to shift. It's going to come through us. And so I'm excited for this next act of my life, where I'm turned on. I am lit up. I am radiant. And that ripple effect is going into the world in ways that I'm so excited to see what happens.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. I think we've I think we're experiencing that the well-worn path as humans is disappearing from view, and the way that you're living your life, feeling into the energy, connecting with your higher self, connecting with that divine center, and feeling into the path is where there's so much beauty. And that was so inspiring. The vision you just painted for us was so inspiring, and I just love it. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Julie, thank you. I know that it's no accident that we stepped into each other's worlds. I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for this work that you're doing. I think it's so important. I think you're so brave. I've even seen you on a journey in just this little time that we've known each other, 1 year. I've seen you really make some big transitions in your life. And I mean, it's like, I'm not your mom, but I'm proud of you.
Oh, well, I same right back at you. Thanks for being here today, Minda.
Yeah, my pleasure.